All righty. All right. Well, hi, everyone.
Robert, no, first of all, excuse me. Don't want to interrupt.
Try to keep yourself on mute if you can. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our July Continuum of Care training. This one is about connecting clients to mainstream benefits. We have this every single year, once a year. It's always a really great training. And this year we have quite a few people you're going to be hearing from a variety of different mainstream benefits that you'll be able to connect your participants to if you don't know how to already. So very much looking forward to this training. Thank you all for being here. And again, I'm not Jamie Jeanette. I am not your typical host. I'm Shelby Ferguson. I'm the CoC administrator with H3. If you do have questions, I'm happy to answer those, or I can always table it for Jamie for next month. All righty, so today, some of the things that you are going to be learning, or some of the goals for today, is really to, understand all of the different mainstream benefits you might be able to assist your participants who are experiencing homelessness and getting connected to. We want to make sure that you have a basic understanding of the requirements for each one of these benefits, as far as eligibility, the application process, and any documents you might need to apply for those benefits with your participant, or to help your participant do it on their own. And then we want to understand what additional information or questions you might have when it comes to connecting people to mainstream benefits, especially related to homelessness. So if you still have questions after this training, or if there's any additional benefits that we didn't talk about that you'd be interested in hearing more about, please let us know, and we'd definitely be happy to add that to either one of the CoC provider calls or next year's training. Alrighty, so you are going to be hearing, you've already heard from me, so I probably won't be talking much of the rest of the training, but you're going to be hearing from a couple different people from Contra Costa County Employment and Human Services Division, as well as Bay Area Legal Aid, and you'll hear very briefly from our core team. They're going to go through a benefit training that I think will be very helpful for you all. So you're going to be hearing from a lot of different folks today. First up, we have Nancy Powers and Rosalind Guillory. They're going to be talking about CalFresh benefits and eligibility requirements, application process, all of that. So Roz and Nancy, I'm going to pass it over to you. Just tell me next slide when you're ready to go.
Okay, thanks. Nancy will start our presentation off.
Good afternoon, everyone. In regards to CalFresh, in this presentation that we're giving today, we just want to give an overview of what the CalFresh program is, and just give some general information on the program, and then give you an idea of how to be able to access information on our website, and where to direct participants to apply, other than applying in the office. We can also have them apply online, so we'll show you that as well. So CalFresh is formerly known as food stamps, and it's a federal program known as SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and that's a federal name. CalFresh is the name that California Department of Social Services gave the SNAP program. So they're all the same: food stamp, SNAP, and CalFresh. CalFresh issues monthly electronic benefits on a participant's EBT card that helps improve the health and well-being of qualified household individuals and their children, and provides them a means to meet their nutritional needs. Next slide, please. So CalFresh eligibility is based on gross and net income levels based on the participant's household size and the household composition. So when a participant applies for CalFresh, we will look at who is actually living in the home, who is purchasing and preparing together, and who we would actually consider the household composition. So if you have, for instance, an adult mom with her child living with the adult mom's mother, they may be separate households. So we really have to look at the structure of the household for those individuals intent on applying, and then the income for those individuals. But they all do need to purchase some, or excuse me, they all do need to apply together if they purchase and prepare meals together. So in the situation I gave you with an adult mother with a child, if she purchased and prepared her meals with her own mother, all three of them would be included in the household. Next slide. So there is CalFresh expedited services. When an individual applies for CalFresh benefits, the first thing we do is screen for expedited services to see if the participant is eligible to emergency CalFresh benefits, is essentially what it is. And we will issue those benefits within 3 days from the application date. If the participant's not eligible to expedited services, then their application will be approved or denied within 30 days from the date of application. Next slide. So the documentation needed for CalFresh is proof of the participant's identity, proof of their earned or unearned income, their social security number. They must be a resident of a county where they applied. So here, of course, Contra Costa County. They will give us their statement on their citizenship. If it is questionable, we may have to ask for verification, but we will take the participant statement. And in some cases, we may ask for verification of expenses. So maybe if the family's paying for childcare or if they have medical expenses, we'll ask for receipts because those are considered a deduction in the CalFresh budget. Next slide, please. Okay, so CalFresh is formerly known as Stamping Out Hunger, Food Stamps, WIC, or General Assistance. In the chat, go ahead and put your answer.
I'll give you all a couple minutes. That's right. I think most people got it.
Wonderful. All right, Roz is up next.
Before we
Sorry,
jump to
any
you, Roz,
questions?
yeah, any questions for Nancy? Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, I don't
question.
see.
I don't know if I should just jump in.
Yeah.
We're constantly looking to verify, confirm, whatever with the families we serve. Is there a contact list of people we can reach out to, or do we just kind of take our chances with calling a general number?
Are you saying to verify that a family is receiving benefits?
Yeah, receiving benefits, or sometimes, they don't have information that we need, and, we need to reach out to somebody, and getting third party is going to take a long time. So it'd be great if we could just make a call and kind of expedite things.
Right. So I will show you how a participant can actually access their own case online, but due to state and federal confidentiality laws, we cannot share any information about a participant's case with the general public. So we can share that information, of course, obviously with the participant, who then can share it with you. But at the end of Roz's and my presentation, we will show you some information, or the website where participants can actually access their case information. So that will be helpful there.
Thanks.
Debbie, you have a question?
Yeah, can you circle back to this one, the citizenship, customer statement unless questionable. So is this saying that they need to be a U.S. citizen? That's my question. I'm not hearing a response. Maybe
Yeah, so they have to be legally here. They have to have legal documentation that shows that they can receive benefits. And so that can be in the form of what we call penalty of perjury statements that we use. And we use that, potentially in this. If they don't have the documentation, we would accept that and give them an opportunity and work with them to help them obtain whatever a formal documentation that we would need. Yeah, so we have a form that we call penalty of perjury. It's a state form that folks can attest, what their status is, while we try to work with them to get any additional documentation that may be needed.
Thank you.
Mhm.
My apologies. I was having a difficult time locating my microphone. It disappeared on me.
I keep doing that too, Nancy. So I keep circling around it because I know I'm going to go next.
So I see a couple questions in the chat. It's asking, would a California ID work, but not a social security number? It will not. So we do have to have a social security number, not necessarily the card, but a number is required. And then the participant would give us their statement of citizenship. So either legal permanent resident or a refugee or a US citizen. And then there is a question, actually there's a couple questions. Are these the same requirements for a college student? And college students do have different qualifications, and they do need to be enrolled at least half-time in an institution of higher education. They would need to be between the ages of 18 and 49. And then the would either have to be, there's a few eligibility requirements, but some of them, for example, would either be working at least 20 hours per week, approved for state or federal work study, and either engaged in work study or have not refused any job assignments, receiving a Cal Grant A or B, of course, being a single parent to a child under 12, receiving CalWorks benefits. There are different eligibility requirements for a student, but those would be determined at the time of application. There was also a question asking if can I be working and be eligible for CalFresh? And yes, the majority of our families receiving CalFresh are working. There are income thresholds depending on the type of income and the size of the family. And I will show you where you can access that, the most recent information that we put on the website at the end of this presentation. Great questions.
Nancy, I think the only other outstanding question was about, I think we'll get this for CalWorks too, if a parent might not be documented, but their children are, would they still be able to receive CalFresh for their children?
The parents would apply for their children, and as long as they meet all of the eligibility requirements, they could be eligible, yes.
Roz, can I ask you a question?
Sure, and it may be that I'm going to cover it in CalWorks, but is it CalWorks related?
No, it's a CalFresh question. What if the caregiver is not a legal guardian or is just like, you know, the grandma or something like that? Are they able to apply for the food stamps as well if the parent is out of the picture?
Yeah, it's for CalFresh, it's a bit different in terms of how the degree of relationship is viewed, because you could be living with your best friend, and if you guys, you know, prepare meals together, then you're just considered one household for the purposes of how we would assess, you know, the income and resource levels for the household. So different from how we assess, you know, the eligibility criteria for degree of relationship for cash aid assistance.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a question, what are the regs for elderly applying? It's the same pretty much across the board. There are some exceptions based on age in terms of certain resource income limits, but just in general, it would be the same for our elderly population.
Awesome. Thank you, Roz. Thank you, Nancy. I'm going to move us along only because we have so many other things to cover. If you still have questions, though, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try to get to them at the end. If not, you can always reach out to Nancy or Roz and get those questions answered.
All righty, so we will move into CalWorks. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rosalind Guillory. My office is located in our Hercules district division. And so I'm going to be talking to you about our CalWorks program, which is our California Work Opportunity Responsibilities to Kids program. That's the cash aid based program, and the federal name for the program, as Nancy pointed out, SNAP, we have a federal mandate. It's the TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. So you may, you know, in different forms here, some folks refer to the program as TANF, but in California, specifically, our program is referred to as CalWorks, and that's the cash aid component of benefit services. And so what CalWORKS is intended to do is to promote and encourage work to enable the families to become self-sufficient. Of course, as I said, we provide financial cash aid for children if they lack financial support and care in that area. And then it is intended to protect and preserve the family unit. We do provide opportunities for rehabilitation of the families whenever possible, and I'll talk about how that's tied into some of our support services and welfare to work program. And then we make available to children that can't live in their own homes the kind of care and treatment that's best suited for their needs through the services. That's really the intent of the TANF CalWORKS program as a state mandate. Next slide, please. So general eligibility, as Nancy said, overall, I just want to emphasize that in terms of the programs that we're covering today, each family's situation is unique. And so what we're given is really a high level overview when we speak of eligibility. But the basis for CalWORKS eligibility in terms of how we evaluate the application for assistance is we look at, is there deprivation, which means that the aided child has to be deprived from some form of parental support or care because at least one parent is either deceased or physically or mentally incapacitated. And the applicant parent is not working, or they're at least working less than 100 hours a month. And there's a continued absence of one or both parents. There are situations where we have grandparents apply for CalWORKS for their grandchildren. Also, there are age requirements that have to be met. The children have to be, in order to be eligible for CalWORKS, they need to be 18 years or younger. Or they can be 18 but must be expected to graduate high school before their 19th birthday. And then CalWORKS does have property eligibility requirements where the property of the child and the parents, it has to be under the following threshold limits, which when there's families with elderly members, that limit is going to be a total $10,211. And this was actually just recently increased. It's actually increased quite a bit. It used to be just as low as I think a couple $1,000s. So over the years, the states have been trying to make sure our programs across all areas are somewhat consistent in those limits. But currently it's the 10,201. And then when there's families with, the first one was without the elderly members, and then secondarily, if there are elderly members in the home, and that's for those that have elderly members that are 60 years of age or older, then the limit is bumped up to 15,317. Next slide, please. So the application process, as I'm sure you all have heard, it can be, quite lengthy. There's a lot of information that we're mandated to collect. There is an application. There are several forms that participants are required to fill out, and they do go through an interview process, which is required for the CalWORKS program. We cannot begin their cash aid until we have confirmed that they meet all the eligibility conditions and that we have all the necessary verifications that goes along with that. Some of those conditions include that they have to apply for a Social Security number. We have to verify their citizenship status or their legal immigration status. We do have to verify income and property, as well as making sure that if there's any potential income that they're entitled to, that they apply for that. So that would be such as unemployment benefits, and that they are required to cooperate with the district attorney when there is a need for child support to be secured due to the absent parent status of deprivation. Next slide. So additional documentation, and this is not all encompassing, but just some highlights of some of the information we would be asking from our CalWORKS families. And so it depends on their situation. When they're applying, we may be looking for things like their driver's license or California ID or just some other form of a state ID, because we do have families that come to us from other states. for each adult in the household. Of course, we are required to have Social Security cards for every member that is going to be getting cash aid benefits. We do need birth certificates for every family member in the home. We do ask for immunization records when there are young children in the home that are under the age of 6 years of age. And registration for their vehicles, we have to evaluate their vehicle values. And we do ask for if they own any other, property as part of their resources, we ask for them to verify that as well, and including receipts for any bills of sales or vehicles. All of that gets evaluated as part of their income and resource and eligibility process. So those are just some examples there. Next slide. So as I mentioned before, at the beginning, in terms of support services and really what the CalWORKS program is intended to do in terms of stabilizing families and help them get back on their feet, a component of CalWORKS is the Welfare to Work program. And for that, when folks come in to apply for CalWORKS or anytime throughout their time on CalWORKS, we identify whether or not they're going to be considered a work eligible adult. And if so, then we provide support services where we identify if they're either underemployed or they're unemployed. And then we work with those adults to help them develop any work skills. We identify any educational training assistance that can be offered in supporting the family to become self-sufficient. Additionally, support services that we have in place are barrier removal services like domestic violence, mental health, substance misuse, English as a second language, and so on. We work with several community partners to support our participants in providing these services. And then additionally, we have support services that we offer to our participants that are in Welfare to Work, such as transportation, to get to and from their activity. Ancillary support, that would be things like if they are in a job that requires them to wear a uniform or things like that. If they're in an education program, going to school and they have to buy books and supplies, those are what we refer to as ancillary support services. They do have to be in an approved activity, and all of our families that come through CalWORKS, depending on the age of their children and their status, they are authorized for child care services. Next slide. So my question to you all is, can a parent apply for CalWORKS assistance for their child only? Yes or no? A or B? Absolutely correct. Folks are on it. Look at those. Folks are on it. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's my high level overview of CalWORKS. As I said, it's just important to keep in mind that eligibility really is going to be uniquely based on each family's circumstances, but those are the general criteria and processes. Any questions?
Don't see any in the chat. If you do have a question, though, feel free to raise your hand because I kind of got lost with all those A's.
Okay, well, I'm going to turn it back on over to Nancy so we can keep everybody on schedule. Okay, I do see I have a client is not eligible for Welfare to Work due to the age of the child. Is there any way to get into Welfare to Work? Yes, and actually the age of the child does not mean that the participant isn't eligible for Welfare to Work. Depending on the age of the child, there are different types of exemptions, and so the parent has the option to take an exemption depending on the age of their child. So potentially that parent could have taken that exemption. If they decide they no longer want to utilize that exemption, they can definitely talk to their Welfare to Work worker or CalWORKS worker about volunteering in for Welfare to Work services. Are we going to talk about Housing Works? No, we don't have that on the agenda today.
I will add that to a provider call agenda for more specific program stuff.
Per the CalWORKS can assist with deposit payments for housing. Can you confirm? Housing Works can, there's a couple different housing components that's tied to our CalWORKS program. As Lisa was asking about Housing Works, that's one specific program that is a specialized funded program, whereas CalWORKS in and of itself, we have what we refer to as our CalWORKS Homeless Assistance Program. So both of those programs or components, I should say, of CalWORKS do offer assistance to families to help with deposit payments, provided they meet certain criteria. Does a parent have to pay child support when all members are living together? Child support, we make a referral to child support when there is an absent parent in the home. If both parents are in the home, and both parents are the biological parents of the children, there is no absence deprivation. We would not be making a referral to child support.
Awesome. Thank you, Ross.
Mhm.
Oh, last question.
We get quite a few calls asking about, so I will speak to that just in general, please. So we have had a lot of different staff move in and out. Shelby and I are working closely together. We will be restructuring our referral process, but please just ask your families that you work with to ask their CalWORKS workers to reach out to me if they are, the CalWORKS workers has to communicate to me if and when they have families that are wanting to be referred to Welfare to Work. So that's the general answer, and we will be having some process changes as we move forward.
Thank you, Ross.
Mhm.
All right, Nancy, I'll hand it back to you.
Wonderful, thank you. So Medi-Cal is California's Medicaid. If you picked up on the state's preference, they like to take the federal and state programs and rename them. So Medi-Cal is Medicaid in the state of California. And it is medical insurance for children and adults who have limited income and resources. And Medi-Cal is supported by federal and state taxes. Next slide, please. In order to be eligible for Medi-Cal, it is offered for adults who are 65 years of age or older, adults who are parents or caretaker relatives that have children under 21 years of age living in the home, adults who are legally blind or disabled, children birth through age 20, and individuals age 26 to 50 and older are eligible for full scope Medi-Cal, regardless of immigration status. One caveat I would like to say is there are a plethora of programs within Medi-Cal based on the age of the applicant, the income, if there is or is not a disability, if there are resources. There are a lot of different avenues for eligibility. So this is an overarching eligibility, but we do encourage any families to apply if they need any kind of medical insurance. Next slide, please. So again, Medicare, now that's different, is a health insurance program for people 65 years of age or older, some people with disabilities under 65, and people with end-stage renal disease. Next slide, please. Now, Medicare eligibility is for an individual or their spouse who has worked for at least 10 years in a Medicare-covered employment. They are 65 years old and a citizen or permanent resident of the U.S. If the individual is under 65, if they have received SSDI for 2 years or longer, they may be eligible for Medicare. And if the individual has end-stage renal disease, they may be eligible for Medicare. Next slide, please. So Shelby, are you able to share your screen with me so I can go to a website to show everyone how to access this information?
I sure can. Let me give you access. Maybe.
I think I might be able to. It's green. So can I try it?
Yeah, try it and see if it lets you. If it comes up the error message, let me know. There we go.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Excellent. So we wanted to share with you today where you can find the most recent eligibility information. And this is the general EHSD website. You can go up here, you'll see the address to, if you type in ehsd.org, you will go to a landing page and you will come to a landing page, but you can also type in the get-connected-contra-costa/ and that will also bring you to this page. So when you come to this landing page for Employment and Human Services, you can see that there are various carrots up here depending on the type of program that you're looking for. Today, I'm going to take you to benefits. And if you hit this green carrot, you will see that there is information about the programs that Roz and I discussed today. Here is general information on the left. General assistance, which I believe Magdalene will be addressing in just a little bit, down on the bottom left. Of course, CalFresh, Medi-Cal, and CalWorks, which includes some information on welfare to work as well. I do encourage you to look at this website and just kind of play around, because this is where we keep our most recent information. So I would like to point out the CalFresh. If you select the CalFresh here, you will see that this on each page has a 24-hour information hotline. The CalFresh Service Center has all of our contact information as far as our buildings. And then this has the most recent CalFresh information that is updated by our policy analysts, who of course have their thumb on the pulse of all things policy. So in this case, we're talking here about the CalFresh emergency allotments because of the public health emergency. And as you scroll down, you'll be able to get information. Here's more details about the student eligibility rule that was asked earlier in this presentation. Asks or shows a little bit of information. Did you know where you can use your EBT card? And then this does give some information about needing benefits now, how someone can call our service center and apply, what the office hours are in the different offices. And then here's a video that individuals can watch in both English and Spanish. And then more information on actually how to apply for benefits. Then as you scroll down, you'll see some information we shared today, such as the minimum requirements someone needs to fill out a CalFresh application, the eligibility requirements for expedited services, so on and so forth. So this is just one of the drop downs for CalFresh. If you look in this section here, you'll see that there's information about CalFresh for individuals who are receiving SSI or SSP, frequently asked questions, EBT, so on and so forth. Again, over to the right, the next column, here are all things Medi-Cal, and then here is some information about CalWorks. And so I would like to point out again, this information is updated by our policy analysts. Again, on the right, you'll see contact information. And then as you scroll down, you'll see the most current policy that we are required to administer with the CalWorks programs. And this does talk about the purpose of CalWorks, the eligibility factors, which Ross covered a little bit ago, age requirements, property requirements, residence requirements, so on and so forth. And as you scroll down, you will actually get a little bit more information about work disregard. So we do encourage our families to work while they're receiving cash aid, and someone can be working while they apply for CalWorks cash aid. And we do deduct income off of their gross earnings. And then these are the maximum amounts that will be paid per person, of course, after taking income and other things into consideration. And then as you scroll down, you'll see a little blurb about homeless assistance and again, our locations.
So just to clarify, Nancy,
Yes.
those max aids are per family household. You mentioned per person.
Thank you,
Yeah.
per family household. Thank you, Russ. So here you'll see the eligible persons in the household. Thank you, Russ. So this is a great resource to have at the ready, so you can look up information when you need to, and especially as as time goes by before the next presentation, of course, eligibility will change. Something else I did want to show you is what's called My Benefits CalWin, and I want to bring this down. I don't know if you guys can see this drop down on my screen, but you'll see www.mybenefitscalwin.org is where participants can go to apply for benefits. And so something fantastic that is available on My Benefits CalWin is a participant can actually see if they're eligible before they go through the entire application process. So if you have someone in your office and they're wondering if they're eligible to benefits, they can click here and then they can either select that they just want to see if they're eligible without creating an account, or they can sign in and create an account. The good thing is if they sign in and create an account, any information that they put in this while they're trying to see if they're eligible will be saved to their account. So they wouldn't have to fill the information out again. But that's definitely based on the preference. So I will show you real quick, see if I'm eligible without signing in or creating an account. They hit next. They will select their county of residence, in this case, Contra Costa. And then it just gives an idea of what the food assistance, medical services, and cash assistance is about. And then they can just walk through and type in who's in the household, their name, their age, if the person that they're listing here is receiving SSI or SSP, if they're a US citizen or have immigration documentation status, and if there's anyone else in their home. If they say yes, they'll say no. Yes, they'll say they have, let's say they have a child. So let's say next, and then they have, say Sydney, 2. Let's say the child's 2 and it's their child. Gender female. Is the child receiving SSI? No. Is the child US citizen? Yes. And is there anyone else in the home? No. We'll hit next. And then we're asking, is anyone in the home pregnant? And say no. Of course, here it does give the option for Lisa to select herself. If anyone's permanently disabled, they would select who is permanently disabled or select no one. Hit next. As far as people in your home, it's summarizing Lisa and Sydney. Whoops. Next. Here is where you would list any kind of income. They would either select that they have, for Lisa, it's calling out specifically because she has 25. Sydney, not, of course, because she's 2. But if she has a job or if she's self-employed, in this case, we'll say she does not have a job. Any other kinds of income, in this case, we'll say no. Any resources, let's say she has $50. And this is where we'll ask about money in a checking account, savings account, cash on hand, stocks, bonds, things of that nature. And then housing expenses, how much her rent is. Let's say her rent is $1,000. Which is actually a deal these days, unfortunately. Do you pay for gas or electricity? We can say yes in this case. Is the gas or electricity used to heat or cool her home? She'll say yes in this case, but she would answer whichever is appropriate. I'm asking if she pays for water or sewage. Let's say no. If she pays for garbage. Let's say no. And if she pays for a telephone service, including a cell phone, let's say yes. So then it asks for an estimate. That she pays for the utilities above, and this can just be an estimate. It's okay if it's not exact, but let's say the total is $150 a month. Here, we're asking if she pays for childcare. We'll say no, since she's not claiming that she's working. And then if she has to pay any court order child support, and we'll leave it blank as well. So then when we hit next, this is the summary. This is how quick it is. This will tell her, well, this will summarize it first. This will let her know this is what you told us. This is how much you have in resources, your rent, and utilities. You're not receiving SSI, SSP, and then the summary of Sydney. And then here's the results. So it's saying it looks like she met the applicant information, the income test for CalWorks. And then it looks like the family qualifies for CalFresh and expedited services. It's indicated here. And then the affordable health insurance under Covered California, which is a portion of Medi-Cal. So this is a very quick way for families to see what they might be eligible for. So if she decides in this case that she wants to take next steps, she can hit next, and then that will take her to this main page, and she can select apply for benefits. And then this will take her through the entire application process. And once she submits the application, then she can, it will go to a unit in one of our district offices. They will contact her for either an in-person, telephonic, or virtual appointment. And that's it. So I definitely recommend using this as well as a resource. It's a wonderful resource and can give a lot of great information.
Thank you, Nancy. Super helpful to have a tutorial. I think I saw a couple questions in the chat for you, Nancy. So someone was asking about property exemptions for the applicant, the savings. I think that maybe was one of the questions.
Okay, so there is a question. Does a parent have to pay child support when all members are living together?
I addressed that one, Nancy.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I thought that was a different one.
This one, it's property exemptions for 88. I'm not sure what the question is, Maria. So maybe you could type it again in the chat. Property exemptions for 88. I'm still not sure what that question is pertaining to. There are certain age limits that just basically increase the resource level, as I covered early on for CalWorks. So in each of our program kind of have their different resource and income thresholds. So I'll just leave that in general. And then there's this question about what about clients I have who reside in a sober living? If they are, families and have care and control of their children, they most definitely can apply for any of our benefit programs.
Oftentimes, sober living agencies do have, when they have participants receiving CalFresh, the sober living home will receive the benefits.
Yes, I just received 2 missed calls from your office.
Oh, someone's not on mute.
Fixed it. Go ahead.
Thank you. And so the sober living home may have access to the EBT card, and then of course they will purchase the food on behalf of the family, and the family, prepares together in the sober living home. So that depends on if the sober living home has access to the EBT card or not. They would know if they do.
All right. Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Rosalind.
Thank you, Shelby, for
Any
having
last
us.
questions?
And if there are any other questions, we can collect those from you. Shelby, we'd be happy to respond. We have a 3 o'clock we're trying to get to, so.
Awesome. No worries.
Okay.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day, everybody.
You as well.
Take care.
Thank you.
We're going to skip that question. Okay, next up, we're going to be talking about GA or general assistance. I am going to pass it to you, Magdalene, if you're available.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the general assistance program. And I do want to start by saying it was really good to see the what Nancy Powers had, or Nancy and Roz had shown in terms of the GA web, the EHSD website, because we're also on there as well. You can also click down into some of the benefits and it'll tell you about GA and it'll give you some eligibility. Some of the things that I'm going to go over today will be on that website. And then that I'm also going to reference the My Benefits CalWin, because our applicants can also apply for general assistance through My Benefits CalWin. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So I just want to give you some basic foundation information about general assistance. So every county in California is required to provide relief and support to all residents who are not supported by their own means, whether or by friends, relatives, or other public funds or other public assistance. In Contra Costa County, general assistance is a program that provides temporary assistance to individuals who are not eligible for federal or state funded cash assistance. And each county's program is established by its own board of supervisors. Policies and regulations are subject to change by the board of supervisors, depending on the funds available to the program. So our program, general assistance, is supported by county funds only. We're not supported by any state or federal funds like CalWorks or CalFresh. We are governed by what's called the California Welfare and Institution Code. So that gives us some basic fundamentals of services and programs that we need to provide for our are individuals or recipients. Next slide. And GA is really a short-term employment focused program for persons unable to sustain gainful employment, and they don't have any other means of support. We provide payments to eligible residents who don't qualify for any other public assistance program. And our applicants are typically single unemployed adults with no dependents, or if they have dependents, they're over 18 and out of the household. We have applicants, recipients who are often disabled. Our program is technically a loan program and must be repaid. However, repayment is typically done through the SSI recoupment process. So if somebody is disabled, then they would, once they get granted Social Security, they would repay what they've gotten on what payments were provided by GA. So that's typically the way that we get repaid. I know sometimes it scares people to say that it's a loan program, and then other people, we do have folks that can, you know, make payments if they are able to once they get on their feet. But again, it is that's technically what we are. So we do, GA provides continued aid for individuals who I said are unable to sustain gainful employment. And then they are applying, while they're on GA, we try to get them on Social Security, supplemental security income or state supplemental payment, SSI or SSP. And that's if they're disabled. So I'm gonna talk about some of the next slide, eligibility factors. So any resident of Contra Costa may be eligible for general assistance, providing they meet the minimum eligibility requirements and eligibility qualifications. And the basic eligibility requirements are basically giving us any employment or earnings, whether it's unearned or earned. So if they worked a little bit, or if they received unemployment benefits, whatever income, we need to get verification of that. Whatever property and resources they have, if they own a house, if they have a car, they need to be a resident of Contra Costa County for at least 15 days. They must be either a legal permanent resident or a U.S. citizen. And a full financial eligibility determination is made at the time of application and throughout the period of assistance to make sure that they continue to be eligible. Employment earnings really include, you know, any wages, self-employment, wages from work. Oftentimes we have folks who are homeless, wages for recycling, you know, if they report recycling, sometimes we would have to consider that as employment earnings. We have married couples who apply, although they apply separately. Their cases are we do look at their cases together. So we need to know if a spouse is working, what their income is, or if their spouse is on Social Security. So we take that into consideration. And then unearned income is you know, monetary gifts, loans, tax refunds, like I said, unemployment benefits, and then government benefits such as SSI, SSP, workers' comp, and state disability. Next slide, some other continued eligibility factors. This just talks a little bit more about earned income, some additional earned income. Income, including, like I said, monetary gifts are considered income. The applicant usually needs to have $50 or less on their person or in their bank account, because our program is really a program of last resort. So our financial income eligibility is very low. Property or resources, you know, they can own a car. That car should be valued at $4,500 or below. And if a car is like finance, we would take that into consideration to determine if it falls within that $4,500 property limit. GA applicants may own a home that he or she lives in. It can be included as considered as excluded property. GA applicants, part of what they need to do in order to continue to get aid is they need to report their income on, you know, every quarter. And then at RRR, which is the redetermination, annual redetermination or recertification. You know, and sometimes, you know, that's what will get them discontinued is they fail to respond to a QR7 or an RRR recertification notice. And so, you know, if you can help your participants make sure that they do this, they won't get discontinued and they can continue to get their aid without disruption. So redetermination is every 12 months, and they don't require a face-to-face meeting unless it's a homeless person who is a level 3, which is either considered unemployable or someone who is unable to sustain gainful employment. Or if the worker gets back information from the RR that has conflicting information, they may need to talk to the recipient to kind of clarify what's really going on and really just to ensure that they meet continuing eligibility criteria. Okay, next slide. I just want to talk about some of the benefits from that we as a GA program can provide. When they do apply for general assistance, the worker can also take an application for Medi-Cal and CalFresh benefits, so that they don't have to have separate appointments for each different program. GA can provide emergency food sources. We do have a food pantry. So we can, and we do the expedited services for CalFresh that Nancy and Roz were talking about. If a recipient is trying to work and they have an interview set up, we can assist them with getting interview clothing, tools needed for employment, and other resources they may need in securing gainful employment. We have had instances where folks needed to pay their union dues in order to get back into the union, to be able to get on the list and be able to get union jobs. That's something we can look into paying for. We do provide bus passes and bus tickets if they need to get to their interviews, or if they, for whatever it is surrounding their employment services that they need to get to, whether it's getting some of these tools so they're able to be prepared for the job interview. We do, for homeless services, we do have a contract with the county shelters, with the Concord shelter and the Brookside shelter. So if there are open beds available, we do have a certain number of GA designated beds. So if the individual is wanting to go into homeless shelter, we would be able to give them an expedited referral if there's a spot. If they don't want to go, they have a good cause reason, we do allow them to decline a bed, but they can still get a homeless portion of the GA grant. We also can provide, hygiene kits for homeless folks, clothing and shoes that may be needed, sleeping bags. We have a variety of different resources that we can pull from to provide services. It varies. I mean, we have a variety of different things. I've given suitcases to clients. Some have had incontinence issues, so we provided resources related to that. So there's a variety of different services and that we can provide to our homeless clients. And so I wanted to talk about applying for GA. So we have had a few changes in applying for GA. Previously, you had to come into the office and be seen in person to apply for GA, but due to the pandemic, we've made a few changes and we're hoping to continue to keep those changes. So individuals can still come into our EHD offices and request a GA application, and they would be scheduled for an intake appointment. They can also go to mybenefitscalwin.org, which is the website that Nancy showed you, where you can see if you qualify for any aid. There's just it might help for you guys to know that when they apply and go on to My Benefits CalWin, they can either it allows them to select cash aid, but there's two types of cash aid. There's the CalWorks cash aid, and then there's the general assistance cash aid. So it's really important that they select the correct cash aid, which would be general assistance if they are a single adult with no dependent children or no dependent children living at home. I mean, if their children are over 18. Because if they have children under 18 that are dependent children, they would have to apply for CalWorks. So if they don't select the right cash program, it may delay their application getting to the right person. So that's why we really want to make sure that they check the correct box for GA cash aid. And then they have to fill out sort of the basic statement of facts about what is their situation. And then when that gets forwarded to the general assistance office, our staff would send out an appointment notice where they would get a telephonic appointment. Unless they really wanted to come into the office, then they would have to request that. But they would get a notice to come for a telephonic appointment. And then they would have to go through another sort of lengthy intake interview process. Just to continue, there's a third way to apply for general assistance, and that's calling one of these, by calling this line either in English or Spanish. And they would, at that point, you would get, they would send you an intake appointment letter. So kind of getting some information from you and then sending you out an intake appointment letter. And that would also be a telephonic intake appointment unless the applicant wanted to be seen in person. So again, the 3 ways are they come in person, they can apply on My Benefits CalWin, or they can call the general assistance intake line, and they could and they'll be sent an intake an appointment for an intake interview that will be telephonic unless they choose otherwise. And our office locations I listed are 1305 McDonald in Richmond, 400 Ellenwood in Pleasant Hill, and 4545 Delta Fair Boulevard in Antioch. So again, it's kind of a big change that we're now allowing people to do the intake interview over the phone. So there's a couple of things, changes we've had since we've done that. But I know in the past, that was something that people wanted us to be able to do. So hopefully this helps our applicants that we can do that. During the one thing that applicants also should know, and you should know too, as you're helping your participants, is that if they apply through My Benefits CalWin, there's a sort of lengthy, what's your situation? Give me some information about your income, your housing, all this stuff. And they feel like, okay, well, I've done that. So when they actually get to the GA intake interview, they feel like, why should I have to do that again? Well, there's specific sort of set of intake forms basically for general assistance that they have to complete. And so it may feel like they're doing it over, but it's different in what we ask, even though it may seem similar. It's a different set of questions that we ask, but it also is a lengthy process. So just to be prepared for that, we do send out the forms in a forms packet. They can also request, we also can send out the forms through Adobe Sign. So that means if they haven't, we can set them up with an account, and they can be sent the forms electronically over a secure network where they can complete the information on the statement of facts, all these different forms that they need to complete. And then if they do that before the intake interview, that can shorten the time they have to be on the phone and going through all this paperwork. So that's one of the changes we've made, is to be able to make it more accessible to folks, to be able to, get their forms quicker, fill them out and get that done while they're either before they see their worker or during the intake interview. Okay, on our next slide. Just some things that people should be aware of when they're getting ready to apply for GA, what kinds of things they'll need. They're going to need medical verification of disability. So if they do have a disability, we'll need some type of medical verification from their doctor. Current identification, current verification of legal permanent residency status, verification of types of property. If they own a vehicle or have a vehicle registered to them, we're going to need that car registration. If it's still registered, if a car's still registered to them, but they don't have the vehicle, that may be an issue. So they're going to have to go to DMV and make sure that they get verification that they no longer have that car. A lot of times that's a reason for cases get denied, and it's a simple fix. So just be aware, if they do have a car that's still in their name, they need to kind of get verification, get that out of their name and get verification that they no longer have that car. For the last tax year, they should have filed. If they have, they may have income that's sitting there. Any bank accounts that show up, we may ask them, even if it's closed, we may need them to say, get verification from, Bank of America that they no longer have this account. If they do have a bank account, they're going to need to get a statement from the bank, either the statement that they can send to them, or sometimes, they may not have that. They should go into the bank and get a statement. Downloading the information, because you can get it from the ATM, but that doesn't have all the required information that we need. So we really need the actual statement from the bank with all the pages. And then any other required verifications. We've recently had a lot of people who don't have a bank account. They just go through Venmo, Cash Apps, PayPal. And so, but there's ways to get statements from those for lack of a better word, financial institutions, and we'll need that as well. So, you know, GA, because we're funded by the county at the county level, a lot more verification that we need than perhaps some of the other programs such as CalFresh and CalWorks. And then, you know, the next slide is really more about, you know, what kinds of what will happen during intake, so that you know, or if you have any questions about it, what they can expect to be doing. You know, they're gonna have to listen, especially when you're doing it over the phone. They need to listen and agree to the rights and responsibilities. They're going to go over the forms with them. They're going to, and you know, it can be done in person or on phone, but typically majority of them have been telephonically. They're going to, we use a recorded line, so that's all recorded. If they indicate a substance abuse problem or the worker identifies one, they will refer to a substance abuse counseling services, which is basically the GA alcohol and drug diversion services. We'll get a more in-depth assessment to see, hey, would you benefit from substance abuse services? And we have a contract with Health Services Department, who works with the a variety of different outside services, medical services that provide outpatient and inpatient substance abuse services. If someone is going to be disabled for longer than 12 months, we make sure that they get hooked up with our advocacy unit, and they can help them apply for SSI. And I talked a little bit about, you know, the homeless assistance and shelter beds that we can work to getting them to, and kind of really just assessing any barriers to sustaining gainful employment. The next few slides, I really just want to this comes up a lot, and I just want to kind of see if I can clarify it for people in terms of with general assistance, there's certain levels. And again, just to remind people, each county has their own general assistance program. So every county does it differently. So some counties don't even have certain levels. They just have a grant for everybody. Like everybody gets $300 a month. But other counties have basically a level 1 and a level 3, or 2 different levels, sorry, level 1 or level 2. We have 3 levels, right? So we have level 1, which is individuals are able to sustain gainful employment, or otherwise known as employable. They don't have any, you know, verifiable physical or medical disability, which precludes employment. So they're eligible for aid for 90 days in a 12-month period. So in every 12-month period, they can have 90 days of aid. So if they at intake say, yes, I can work, I really want to try to get a job, they would be categorized as a level 1. And as a requirement of this level, they would need to submit a job search, which is really just looking for 3 jobs and showing verification of that. And that's one thing that they sometimes don't do. And it's a really simple fix. If they go through, they can go down to, you know, what is it called? EDD or any of the, you know, a job works facilities, and just go online and try to apply for jobs, or, you know, call places and put this information down. That oftentimes is a reason that people get discontinued early from their 90 days of aid. So that's something that we could, you know, use help with, trying to make sure that these clients don't get discontinued for something they can easily just fix. Okay, so I kind of went over level 1. Level 2 is like this in-between level. They're considered to have temporary barriers to sustain gainful employment, otherwise known as conditionally employable. So they either have to have a verifiable medical or physical disability that's expected to last 12 months or less. So it's not a long-term disability. It could be something like they could have broken their leg, maybe they have to have surgery, and they're going to be not able to do, you know, be needing to recover for, you know, 6 weeks to 2 months. Or typically in our situation, it's somebody who has is identified as having a substance abuse. So they'll get, you know, 6 to 9 months, maybe longer, depending on their treatment, to be able to focus on dealing with their that particular issue. You know, going to treatment and making sure that they're addressing their, you know, substance abuse issue. So those are the two typical situations in terms of when someone is a level 2. So the difference between a level 1 and a level 2 is a level 1 doesn't have a disability. A level 2 has a temporary disability. and they get the same amount of aid. There's no change in the level of aid. So typically they could be eligible up to $336 a month for level 1 or for level 2. So the next slide is our level 3 clients, and those are clients who are unable to sustain gainful employment, otherwise known as unemployable. They're either 65 years or older, legally blind, or have a verifiable physical or mental disability, which precludes any ability to sustain gainful employment. And it is expected to last 12 months or longer. You know, a lot of times those are folks who have some major mental diagnosis, and that has made it difficult for them to maintain any kind of lasting employment. So these folks who can provide a verifiable medical or physical verification of their disability, they can receive GA continuously while they are disabled. And they typically will get GA and while we try to get them hooked up with advocacy to be able to apply for SSI, because SSI, one, is a much larger amount of money they would get, and they'd also be eligible for other services like HDAP, which is, you know, folks who are getting SSI, they can get into some type of housing. So again, the levels 2s and 3s need to, anyone who has a temporary or a long-term disability needs to get a verified medical or physical disability. And that's done by completing our form, which is the GA 341. And we can send it to their medical facility, whoever they identify. You know, some people are with Kaiser, and so Kaiser has a very systematic way of how they provide verification of disability. So once they get our form, then they would send us back their report. And so we would then be able to have that and grant them as a level 3, where again, level 3s get a lot longer longer length of time of getting GA, as well as their grant is increased. I think the first level, if you're living alone, it might be either $375 or $399 a month. I can't remember for sure. So those are the 3 levels. And again, you know, sometimes we are level 3s, and this is where a lot of, you know, we have a lot of core people, our core partnership, who work with our homeless individuals. We have a lot of you know, homeless folks who are level 3s who, you know, they can't seem to get their medical verification. And if you can help them, you know, we can give you the GA 341 so you can make sure it gets to the proper medical facility. So we get that information back and be able to grant them for services that they'd be eligible for, and that can help them maybe get some sort of stability. And the last thing I just wanted to talk about is the notice of action. And that's really just because if for some reason, and this is a lot of times where we have folks help their participants with, you know, for any negative action, GA sends a notice of action. So if anything gets changed, if they get denied, discontinue, anything that affects the participants' GA benefits, a notice of action will be sent to their address on file with their appeal rights and how to file appeal. And they'll provide good cause information, ADA assistance, the phone number for Bay Area Legal Aid. So it's really important that if they do get a denial or discontinuance and they feel like they wanted to appeal it, that they really just have to send something to our appeals office, which is at 400 Ellenwood office. You just put appeals office 400 Ellenwood, and it'll get to them. Or you can call and they can talk to the worker and say, I want to file an appeal, you know, and it's really, they just have to provide some type of written documentation saying, I want to file appeal on, you know, this negative action. It can be as simple as that. And they have 30 days from the date of the action, or the date of the letter, I think, to file that appeal. It used to be 14 days. We've changed it now to 30 days. So that is just the one important thing that is necessary to help your folks with, because I know, you know, we have new staff, and so we are trying to make sure that we don't discontinue or deny anybody erroneously, but you know, there are mistakes that happen. So we want to make sure that we grant and deny appropriately. So it's really the kind of overall picture of GA, a little bit of detail, but you know, it's important, I think, for you to know, because details, GA is kind of a specialized program. And so I think it's important to know some of these kind of pieces of information. Are there any questions? Okay, so So, okay, so I see a bunch of questions. So I'm Magdalene Gable. The maximum amount of time one can receive GA. There is not expedited GA. We have 30 days to grant the case. Typically, our workers are pretty good at granting it quicker than 30 days, but they do have 30 days to grant. Again, if they're a level 1, the max they can receive in 90 days in a 12-month period. If they're level 2, meaning they have like a temporary medical or physical disability, they can have up to 12 months of GA. And then if they have a long-term disability, they can have 12 months or more. I mean, they can go on for years until they get secured Social Security. Can they do the QR7 and other research forms remotely? They can do, no, the QR7 is, sorry, all forms. We can do the recertification process, is never done. You don't ever have to come in for a research process unless there's some issue, unless you're homeless. There's only a certain few numbers of situations where you would actually have to come in, but if you need questions on the forms, you can do it telephonically with your worker. The annual recertification forms are a little bit different. So there is a different set of forms that get sent out. If your client or your participant needs those, we can resend those out. And then can one get their GA increased? The only time you really get their GA increased is if you change a level. So if you change from a level 2 to a level 1 to a level 3, you have a disability, you get more aid. If you live with people, that will determine, you live with people and you're low, and depends on who you live with. Like if you just live with roommates, there's a chart in terms of if you're one person, if you're two person, that will increase or decrease your general assistance loan. So that may affect your general loan.
So level 1 is how long is the service? How long is the benefit for level 1?
How long is the what? I'm sorry.
How long is the GA benefit for a level 1?
So 90 days. If they haven't had level 1 previously in the last 12 months, they can have 90 days of aid. But say they applied within the 12 months and they had like 10 days. They that level is prorated. So basically in a whole 12-month period, they can have 90 days. It can be piecemeal together into different periods of time, or it can be all together 90 days.
So the level 2, if they're deemed mental health, is 12 months and it could be longer. Is that correct?
Level 2 is 12 months or under. So those folks are
okay.
usually substance abuse. If they have substance abuse issues, they typically are a level 2. But if they have like mental or physical, some long-term physical disability or long-term mental disability, then they would get the 12 months or over. Then they could, as long as they continue to meet eligibility criteria each year, they would continue to get the general assistance each year.
And then the level 3 again, please.
That was level 3. The 12 months are over. Sorry, 12 months are over. They have a long-term medical or physical disability. Maybe they're obese and they can't walk and they have COPD, all those different kinds of things. Then we could see their getting the medical verification from their doctor, and we could grant them GA as a level 3. And they would get, and then they would just have to make sure that they provide that medical verification every year to make sure they meet. And the income, it's really about income and medical verification for GA to make sure that they continue to be eligible.
Okay, sounds good.
And then there was a question, I saw one other question about, what was it about SSI? Can someone revive SSI? Is that revive?
I think receive both SSI and GA at the same time.
No, you either get one or the other. So if you have SSI, you would be ineligible for GA. And SSI gives you a lot more, GA is, again, our grants are really low. They're really consistent with the other counties. All the counties are pretty low, but it is hard to, survive on a GA grant alone, which is why, those folks who have, who are eligible for other programs should really try to get GA, because they would get a lot larger amount of money. And I didn't go over the check your knowledge question. So,
all right, so you just got to it.
Is someone on referral potentially eligible for general assistance? What's your guess? Yes or no? A, yes. A. You know what? You guys know your business, because it is. They are. As long as they are not a fleeing felon. If they're on parole, that's fine. If they have a felony conviction, they are eligible. The only time they are not eligible is if they are a fleeing felon, they might have a warrant out. We would not grant GA for that. And unfortunately, GA, they do have to be some type of eligible citizen, whether it's an LPR or US citizen. So we would not grant somebody who's an undoc, unfortunately. And then,
Oh, sorry.
Good.
I had
That's
asked in the chat, I'm sorry if I missed your answer. I had asked if they can do the QR7 or the other recertification forms remotely. I know you were saying the initial application,
Yes.
a lot of it you can do remote.
You can do, we do the recert process is, I did say that, but I might've gone too fast. The recert process typically is done through the mail. They send out the forms and then the recipient would just complete the forms and send them back. They can do them over the phone if they want to call their worker and say, I sent in these forms, or, typically in the past, that process hasn't changed. We've just done it through the mail, but we can also do it over the phone if they want to.
Thank you.
So yeah, the biggest change I think we have is that we're now doing a lot of things telephonically, and we have the ability to send out the forms through Adobe, and they have the option to apply for GA benefits through my benefits CalWin, which we had not had before. So those are all good things, and we've had for our clients, we just the one thing with my benefits is just to make sure if they can get check the correct box for cash aid, GA cash aid instead of CalWorks cash aid, because otherwise it may take a little bit of time for the application to get to the right office, and then we would send out the appointment letter. But yeah, so I think there's a lot of good changes, and I think a lot of people do have my number. They can always reach out to me if they have questions. I know I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I forgot to cover. Is there any other questions that people have about general assistance or helping our folks? No? All right. Well, I appreciate your time. And if there's any other questions, I'm sure Shelby will forward them to me and I will answer them as best I can.
Thank you so much, Magdalene. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Oh, my phone number. I give you my phone number. I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to keep going. We've got some really great presentations so far, a lot of great information. I'll send out these slides, don't worry, and the recording, so you have all the information that we talked about. Okay, next we are going to hop back over to EHSD side to talk about SSI, SSDI. Renata, are you going to be the one presenting for this one?
I am. I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll let you take it away.
All right. Hi, I'm Renata Pierce. I am the advocacy supervisor over 3 offices, Pleasant Hill, Antioch, and Richmond office, where I have social workers in each office. Magdalene hit on a bunch of the stuff I was going to talk about already. So thank you, Magdalene. So advocacy is a referral only process that comes from GA or CalWorks workers. It is not an outside agency referral. And basically what our focus is for those level 3 general assistance individuals that come in to be able to get them onto Social Security or SSA benefits or SDI benefits so that they can get back on their feet and have some type of income or stable income. So to qualify for advocacy, they have to have a disability that is over 12 months long, and it's a permanent disability. They have, for our advocacy program, they have to be in the county and in our county. We also get them in touch with attorneys. We can't make a referral to an attorney, but we do give them a listing of attorneys that do take SSI cases. We no longer do CAPI here in Contra Costa County. Santa Clara County took over all of our CAPI cases. An additional eligibility requirement is that for our advocacy program, we only handle individuals over the age of 18. So a lot of times we'll get CalWorks clients that have disabled children, they want us to assist, and we don't assist with those children, but what we do is we give them the resources to people that can help them. Next slide. So Social Security disability is made up of 3 different areas. The first is SSI or RSDI, which is Retirement Survivor Disability Insurance. So the individual has to be either retired, age 62 or older, disabled, or a spouse survivor. The SSI application can be filled out online now. Actually, when I was typing this, I realized that I forgot to edit. So the SSA 8000 is now available to be completed online. So individuals, whoever they are, wherever they are in the county, can apply themselves online if they want to. It is a very long application, and they want you to make sure that every box is actually checked yes or no or NA. Let's see. Yeah, so the other important information that goes along with the SSI application is to make sure that the individual has any medical records or has a history showing all of their doctors that they've gone to. Unfortunately, ER visits do not count. It has to be a primary care doctor that the individual has documentation for, and it could be either mental health or just physical health. Okay, next slide. So the timeline for an SSI application, and it varies by individuals. We've had applications where we filed an initial application and had the individual granted within 90 days because that person had their detailed medical information. We've had other ones where we thought it was a sure thing, where we had like 3 reams of paper worth of medical documentation and it was denied, and we had to go all the way to the appeals council. So the initial application typically takes 3 to 6 months. If they're denied at initial application, we start the reconsideration or appeals process, which can take an additional 3 to 6 months. If that is denied, then we can take it to hearing, and that can take an additional 1 to 18 months. And then if that's denied, it will go again to appeals council, which could take up to 2 years. And this is not a congruent time. This is on top of each other. So it's stacked back to back to back. So it could possibly take 4 to 5 years sometimes. And with advocacy, we do follow the individual all the way through these steps. Okay, next slide. The review process, typically once the application is filed, it is assigned to an SSA analyst. If the analyst decides that the case is warranted, the case will be sent in for a disability determination. The communication starts with that analyst. That's where they're also collecting the medical appointments, medical records. If for some reason the individual didn't have all of that information, they may be sent to a categorically eligible medical examiner that is assigned by the SSA office. My staff do help transport the individuals to those appointments and coordinate those appointments. And that's where the functional reports and questionnaires come in. Okay, and if we are not transporting, say the individual, we can't get to them, we do provide public transportation, either a taxi cab or bus passes, BART passes for them to get to those appointments. Next process. Denied applications, I touched on this a little bit, they have 60 days to file an appeal, or plus the 5 mailing days. They can either file online in the office or paper and mail it in. If the appeal deadline is missed, they can file a good cause appeal. There are the different types of appeal are the reconsideration, the hearing, an attorney referral, or appeals counsel. Okay. Next slide. Granted claims will receive a letter in the mail. They don't receive a phone call. They are required to attend a PERC appointment, which basically goes over their financial information and if they are in need of a authorized representative payee. Typically, authorized representative payees are assigned or required for individuals that have drug or alcohol related substance abuse problems, because they want to make sure that their money is not mismanaged. They have 30 days to follow up once they receive the letter in the mail. If not, after 1 year, they have to restart the whole application process over. So it's very important for once we know that an individual is has applied for SSI, that they are looking for their mail. We try to have 2 copies sent, one to the client and one to us as the social workers that are representing them. Or once they're handed over to an attorney, then the attorney also gets a copy of that letter so that we can kind of catch anything before it goes sideways. Common problems that we have are individuals that are hard to serve populations because they're homeless and they don't have active mailing addresses. As you know, COVID made it very difficult for a lot of our individuals to get mail because they were using the general delivery at the post office, and a lot of the post offices stopped that. We also have individuals that don't want to complete applications. They don't have friends or family members that they trust. When it comes to payee or having an authorized representative, we did have one company that was agreeing to be an authorized representative for individuals in Contra Costa County, but as of about 3 years ago, they quit that process and don't work with Contra Costa anymore. So our only other avenue is the individual has to be connected to the mental health department, and mental health will assign them a authorized representative. Once all of those processes have gone on, then the individual is off of county aid and is in receipt of their SSI. What a lot of people don't understand is that once they're granted, it's not an indefinite thing. It can end if the individual does not continue to seek medical care. So it's very important that they keep up with their care and treatments. Okay, next slide. We also, through advocacy, work very closely with CORE and H3 to provide the Homeless Disabled Advocacy Program. The requirement just recently changed on some things, but not all. Our prior program requirements was the individual had to be homeless longer than 12 months or 12 months in a 3-year period. They had to be disabled and they had to apply for GA to be referred to advocacy so that we could get them started on their SSI process. Or if they came in the door and already applied for SSI, but were still pending, those individuals qualified also. The referral is made directly through the GA worker or a CORE team member and sent to advocacy, and we review those cases or those individuals twice a month to go over eligibility, housing, how we can assist them once they're housed. We do follow-up care on them for up to 2 years after they've been housed. The CORE team also offers individuals assistance with money management and life skills trainings. Since 2018, when we integrated and started working together, Contra Costa, EHSD, and H3 have serviced over 200 individuals and have permanently housed 134 individuals. All right, next slide. So our contact information for the 6 advocacy worker or social workers that work with me are right here for everybody. So the PowerPoint will be going out, so you guys should have that readily available. All right. Okay, so check your knowledge. Which statement is true? SSI cannot be discontinued. SSDI is for injuries that are expected to last less than 12 months, example, broken leg pregnancy, and SSDI is long-term.
This might be our hardest question. Mostly B's. We have a couple C's.
All right, you guys, it's A. What I was saying is SSI cannot be or can be discontinued. I'm sorry, it was B. My brain is like, yeah. All right.
That was a trick question, I think.
Yes, it was. And I even got it wrong. So anybody have any questions for me?
Renata, I think I saw a couple in the chat. Let's see here if I can get back to them. Let's see. Okay, if you're on SSA or SSI, can you work and still receive benefits? If so, what's the max amount of hours the person can work where their benefits would not be affected?
Okay. SSI, you cannot work. The other one, I believe you can work, but it's limited hours, and I don't know the actual number of hours for that.
Yes, I will go back to the contact slides. I promise everyone, please don't freak out. I will send the slides out to everyone. Don't worry. You will have all this information. And if we have time at the end, which I hope we do, I will show you how to make sure you're on the CoC mailing list so you can automatically get all of these slides after every single CoC training that we do.
Oh, I see a bunch more questions coming in, but they're going up too fast.
Okay, let's see. So, if someone used to have SSI, but then worked for several years and now needs SSI again, will they receive it quicker?
That's up to the Social Security office. I have no idea.
You just do the advocacy.
Yes.
Is there a statute of limitation when applying for SSDI? If I'm not mistaken, applicants must apply within 5 years since they last worked. Is that still the case?
No.
Okay, not the case. Can you own property and still be eligible for SSDI?
Yes, but there's limits on it.
Right, that makes sense. I think that's all the questions. Anybody else have any other questions for Renata? Thank you, Renata. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this.
No problem.
Is there a way to get denial letter quicker due to immigration status when trying to apply for CAPI?
That's all up to the SSI office.
Good questions, just not all ones that we can answer.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Well, I'm going to keep moving. Oh, we maybe got one more. I'll give it one more question. Persons on SSI cannot work. Is that true?
Correct. That is correct. They cannot work. I shouldn't.
Hello. Hi. I want to.
They can work, but they're only allowed a certain amount of income. So I want to say that's less than $2,000 a month. It's very limited on what they can do.
Can I comment? Can I comment? Can I comment on this? A person on SSI can work. You have a certain amount of hours. You can only obtain less than $2,000 in your bank account. You can work less than 36 hours a week. As long as your income does not oversee your income from SSI. If you make the same amount from SSI and income, your income from SSI will decrease or it will be discontinued.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Thanks, Darlene. So the answer is it's complicated and probably something that you want to check with the SSI office and the worker to make sure, but it sounds like working is super limited.
Yes.
Oh, we got a big question here. So let's see.
It's not a question.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. Not a question. Great. Okay, I'm going to let Renata off the hook because we're going to keep going. Should you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to pass those along to Renata and her team. Again, they do the SSI, SSDI advocacy. So if it's really specific to SSI in the SSI office, they might not be able to answer those questions, but can definitely try.
Also, I want to chime in. Hi, my name is Demetria. I work as an income specialist, and they can work for up to a whole year before it's actually started to count towards, they keep record of, you have to inform them when they start working, but they give them up to a year. And then after that year, if it goes over whatever the amount they get, then they can't have SSI anymore.
Gotcha. Thank you, Demetria. Okay, I am going to pass it over to Lisa super quickly to talk about a training called SOAR. Lisa, take it away.
Hi, I'm going to talk about SOAR real quick. I'm not going to keep you guys too long. So the SOAR training is a free training. It is online. The training is for both adult and children, and it shows you how to go from start to finish in acquiring help for your clients to apply for SSI. It gives you a real life case. It has you interview, talk to the people, and everything online. Thanks. This is the website you go to, you click on it. It'll ask you to register, you put in, and then it gives you reading material, and then it gives you questions and an active case. What you would do is after you complete the course, they'll have you do the whole report, the whole application, and that means gathering the doctors and other mental health documents, and then you would submit it. And then once it's submitted, they'll go over it, they'll look at it, and if it's correct, then they will have you pass the course. If it's not correct, which is really good, they give you insight. So they will tell you what you didn't do, what you forgot, what you have to complete, and all of that before you can submit it again and get a passing note. You could submit it more than one time and then give you feedback. So it's not like, it's a fail or pass type program. It's a program that you go in, you learn the documents, you learn the process, and you figure out how to do it. That doesn't mean that just because you get a SOAR certificate, you should be out there trying to do everybody's Social Security. You still should go through proper channels. It just gives you more knowledge on what to gather when you're helping your client. And that's it.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, so our check the knowledge question for the SOAR training is SOAR training trains caseworkers to help people apply for which of the following programs: SSI, SSDI, SSA disability programs, SSI VA veteran programs, SSDI, SSI GA, SSDI. So A, B, or C. You're correct. I think everybody got that one right. A. So SSI, SSDI, and SSA disability programs. Thanks, Lisa. I put the link to that training in the chat in case folks wanted to look at it right now.
Hey, Shelby, I have to step out now.
No worries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lisa.
Bye.
Okay, and we're going to keep moving. We have almost 20 minutes left. So next up, or last but definitely not least, is so what if someone's application is denied for any one of these benefits? Then what would you do? So I'm going to pass it over to Abby, a senior staff attorney that we work very closely with at Bay Area Legal Aid, and she's going to walk you through some steps. Abby?
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This has been really great. I think I have learned a lot too, so this has been perfect. It also was a really great setup for this ending, I think, because I'm not going to have to get too deep into what each of these benefits programs are, because I think now we all have at least a general broad understanding of how the programs work. But that doesn't mean that our clients or our patients always get onto the benefits that they feel like they might be entitled to. So for any one of the benefits mentioned, there is an appeals process if someone is denied on their initial application, or maybe they have been receiving the benefit for some time, and then just received a notice of action saying that the benefit amount has been lowered or has been discontinued altogether. These are all negative actions that can be appealed. So a denied application is something that our attorneys would want to work on. That includes verbal denials if they went into the office or called in and were told that their application was denied, or a failure to timely process applications. Each program has a different timeline to process applications, but if an application is not approved within a certain amount of time, sometimes there's an avenue to appeal that there. We can also help appeal the benefit start date or the calculation of the grant amount. So the benefit start date, I've mostly seen these cases with Social Security where the date of the initial application is called this like protected filing date. And typically if someone has to appeal the decision, they are able to get retroactive benefits to that point. But sometimes that date can be moved depending on the onset of the disability. So that's something we look at because it can really impact how much back pay someone gets. We also help with appeals for overpayments. That's when someone gets a notice from the county or from SSA saying, hey, we accidentally paid you too much and you owe us money now. So we can help people appeal those overpayments or at the very least negotiate a reasonable repayment agreement. Like I mentioned, we also help with appealing reductions in benefits when someone is receiving one amount and then finds out they'll be receiving a different amount and maybe they don't understand why, or maybe the reason is clear but they disagree with it. So we help with those too. We also help with the denial of services. So this is kind of going back to the beginning of this presentation when we talked about medical benefits. With Medi-Cal, sometimes there can be difficulty accessing doctors or accessing appointments, difficulty with language barriers there, or coverage of prescriptions. So we can help try to tackle those issues too. We have a whole health consumer center that dedicates all of their time to Medi-Cal appeals, which is really, really great. They do a lot of good work in terms of the benefits I just mentioned, but also working with people who have received really high medical bills that they think might not be right, or Medi-Cal or their insurance was supposed to cover part of it and didn't. Those are cases we're able to take on as well. And then the last bullet point is termination, pretty clear, but if someone is on benefits and then it's terminated, we help with that appeal. So appealing negative actions through Social Security, we already learned what the application process looks like and how the county can provide some advocacy there. Once someone is denied from their initial application, there is the first level of appeal. It's called a request for reconsideration. It can be submitted online for many appeals, but if it can't be submitted online, you can do it in person or by phone, or I believe you can get the paper copy too. But that's something we can go over with folks. The first level of reconsideration, there can sometimes be this informal conference where you meet with the Social Security staff before the decision is made, but oftentimes it's just made by Social Security staff looking at the record, looking at any additional medical records that maybe hadn't been submitted when the first initial application was submitted to make a new decision. If the person is denied again there, that's okay because we can appeal again. So this is where the bulk of our work is, the level 2 appeal. We work on a lot of hearings, and this is before an administrative law judge. Typically for Contra Costa cases, these cases are heard in Oakland. This is like the first time usually that the applicant gets to talk to the judge or the decision maker, the person making the decision on their case. So this can be a more meaningful point in the appeal process. However, due to the pandemic, the delays have been massive. Before the pandemic, the delays were pretty bad. Now they've been trying to do a lot of hearings by phone, which has been good in some ways to get things moving, but also really hard because, like I said, the big benefit of this level of hearing was to get our clients in front of the person making the decision, just so some disabilities, I think it's easier to show when you meet the person or talk to them. The judge would have opportunities to ask questions. We would have the opportunity to talk about their work history, all of that. So things have just changed since the pandemic. If someone is denied at the hearing, and so this is where we have the most success also, I should say, most of our, the cases that have been denied and then that denial is overturned and the person receives their benefits, usually that happens at this level 2 hearing stage. The next level of appeal is the appeals council review. This is in federal court. There's a very low success rate once we get there. We really need to show that SSA really messed up this case and didn't consider something, or like something went wrong here to be able to have success before the appeals council. Deadlines, 60 days from the receipt of the notice. There's an extra 5 days, so like technically it's 65 days from the receipt of notice, but we like to say 60 just to be safe. There's also a deadline to get continued benefits. So if someone is on benefits already, they receive a termination notice, they have 10 days to request what's called aid paid pending, and that is just continuation of their benefits through the decision on their appeal of that termination, if that makes sense. So appealing actions with EHSD, the first recommendation we always make is to just talk to your worker. If someone is denied or has their benefits lowered, or something negative or bad happens with EHSD, we recommend just calling the worker, because I think someone mentioned it earlier. There's, there can be high turnover. There's a lot of new staff. People do their best, but mistakes are made all the time. So sometimes it's something that can be easily corrected just by calling and speaking to someone. So we do that a lot. There's other folks you can call too, the ombudsperson. You can also request a hearing. So if you can't resolve the issue just by speaking to the worker, appeals can be filed. Here's a link to filing appeals. There's deadlines for these too. 90 days from the date on the notice, or up to 180 days with good cause. Good cause is available for all of these processes, and basically what that means is if you miss the deadline for appeal, you if you're able to show that you had a good cause reason to miss that deadline, say you were hospitalized or you were very sick, or like the week of your appeal, I don't know, something happened, like a good reason to prevent you from filing that appeal or sending that in, then the agencies have the discretion to allow you to still file the appeal even though it's not timely. So anyways, that's what good cause is. That's available in all these arenas. So I don't want folks to think, that you always should try and file an appeal by the deadline, but if you have a good reason to have missed the deadline, there may be some wiggle room there. It's not guaranteed, but it's worth a try. Aid paid pending, I explained that. We can move on to the next slide. General assistance appealing negative actions. So we talked about GA a while ago. Same as other EHSD benefits. First rule is probably to talk to the worker just to see if there's something that could be resolved through that conversation. If not, folks can submit their hearing request in writing to the Office of the Appeals Coordinator. The information's here, and I think this PowerPoint will be distributed after, so no need to write this down or memorize this at all. You can call this number to make a request as well. There's a 30-day deadline to request a hearing, and the day one starts, so the clock starts ticking on the day on that notice, regardless of what day the person receives that notice. That's super important because with other appeals processes, it starts usually 5 days after the date's on the notice to give you that extra window for mailing time. But this starts 30 days after that date on the notice, even if mail took like 3 days or 5 days or what have you. Other deadline things to think about. You may need to appeal right away for aid paid pending or benefits continuation. I mentioned that, but again, really important if you're receiving benefits and receive a termination and want to continue receiving that benefit, that you file right away for aid paid pending, just to keep receiving it until either the final denial or until you're reinstated. If you didn't get aid paid pending and then are reinstated, oftentimes you would be eligible for back pay. But that in-between time is really, really difficult without that income. I talked about good cause already. Sometimes you can argue that if you filed late. So I want to just talk about this real quick, some rights of someone who's receiving public benefits. And these seem obvious, but we run into issues like this all the time. So folks have a right to be treated without discrimination when applying or receiving benefits. They have a right to language access. That means access to translation services, accommodations. If someone needs to talk by phone, or they need to see something in writing, or they need, maybe they can speak English fine, but need to have something written in a different language, anything like that needs to be accommodated. They have a right to confidentiality, to know that their worker or someone they talk to at the office is not going to go home and tell their friend about this case, or that their medical records won't get misplaced. They have a right to adequate notice. The notice has to be timely. Termination, or whatever kind of notice, needs to be timely and adequately explain what's going on. They also have a right always to file an administrative appeal or to challenge the action or the inaction. Inaction would be, if a request is not timely responded to. Legal services. So we do all the things I just talked about. But that can look different depending on what the legal issue is. So we do advice on all public benefits, and that advice often happens over the phone. We do a short intake to make sure someone is eligible. I should clarify too, all of Bay Legal services are free as long as the individual is at or below 200% of the federal poverty level. If someone is slightly above, that's usually okay. We try to do something called a spend down to get them within that range. But 200% of the federal poverty level is the general rule of thumb here to be eligible for our services. So once someone is eligible, we can give advice on public benefits. We also provide representation for many people if they are terminated or denied benefits, more limited representation for overpayments, over issuances, and then denial of Social Security and SSDI varies by county. So for instance, Alameda County, we have a huge team of Social Security attorneys. That's the way we got this grant, and that's the way it works, and it's really great. But in Contra Costa, unfortunately, I think we have 2 attorneys right now who can work on Social Security cases, which is absolutely better than nothing, but does not meet the need by a long shot. So we also have a youth regional project. They're able to serve young people applying for Social Security if you're under 18 and have been denied actually from any benefit. Our youth unit can help young folks with those terminations, or if their grant amount has been changed, they can help appeal that. San Francisco, we have attorneys working on Social Security and other benefits as well. Our reentry unit does a little bit of benefits as well. Also not on here is our veterans project. We have dedicated veterans attorneys who work on access to benefits. Something we didn't really talk about here is veterans benefits. Veterans are eligible for a different set of benefits that the rest of non-veteran population isn't. So we help with those appeals as well if they're denied. And then that is pretty much it. Thank you again, everyone who went before me for really getting into the weeds on these issues. But here's our contact information if you need help, or if you're working with someone who needs help. If they have been issued a denial or overpayment or termination in any public benefit, whether it be GA, CalFresh, CalWorks, CAPI, SSI, anything, they should call our legal advice line first, and that's the 800 number The best time to call is right at 9:30, Monday through Thursday. That's the time where there's going to be the least wait time. If you call later in the day, it's still okay. There might be a wait time. There's a callback feature, so the person doesn't necessarily need to sit on the phone the whole time. But I like to have people call right at 9:30 to get to speak to someone right away. And then our Health Consumer Center phone number is right below. That's where you would call with any Medi-Cal or other insurance issues. We don't do medical malpractice. That's something people get confused on. Medical malpractice, if you want to sue a doctor or an insurer or something like that, then you would need a private attorney, but we help with, access to health benefits. And that is all I got. I'm happy to answer. Oh, sorry, I forgot to check your knowledge. What types of issues should you request an appeal on? I can read them. A, only Social Security. B, only denied applications because overpayments cannot be appealed. C, anytime a notice is issued. D, when in doubt, file an appeal on any negative action or inaction taken on your case, no matter which benefit you are receiving. This is kind of a softball, huh? But yeah, everyone's getting it right. Perfect. Yeah, thank you all so much. I'm happy to answer questions. And also we really look forward to getting referrals from all of you for your patients and your clients.
Thank you so much, Abby. Anyone have any questions for Abby? I don't see any, but just want to make sure in case you do. All right, well, thank you so much, Abby. Really appreciate your time. Okay, so we do have no time left. We're at the end of our time, so we don't exactly have time for questions. But if you do have questions, I can put our CoC email in the chat that you can reach out to myself and Jamie. We're able to respond to that email address, so I'm happy to put that in the chat. If you think of other questions that didn't get answered related to these topics, happy to help. Otherwise, I'm gonna let everyone go for today. If you do want to stick around, I'm happy to show you how you can set up your mailing listings to make sure that you're not only getting the Zoom link for this meeting, but you're also getting the materials after. So if you have time, you're welcome to stay on. I can show everyone that very quickly. Otherwise, if you're already on the list or you know you're going to get the recording, you're free to go. But I will share my screen to show everyone how to do that. You're not free to go. I forgot about the survey. Oh no, I shouldn't have let everyone go. Okay, so we do have a survey that we ask every single time. If you have a couple minutes, we would love to hear your feedback. I am going to put the link to it in the chat. If you're able to fill that out, that would be greatly appreciated. We really want to hear your feedback on how you thought the training went. If there's pieces or departments that you felt like were missing and you'd like to hear from, please let us know. Like I said, we do this training every year. It's a required training that we have to do, but we also want to make sure that's informative and relevant to you all. So I did put that link in the chat so you can access that. And let me pull up our mailing listing so everyone can make sure that they are on the listing. Alrighty, so if you go to our CC Health website, you will go down to, it'll automatically take you to I want to, and then it'll show you a bunch of different tabs. The one you're going to click on is sign up for mailing list. Maybe. Don't know if it'll load today, hopefully. Alrighty, so here's where you're going to put in your email address, all your information. And then these are all the different email lists that you can get signed up for. So some are just like information about different topics. Others are super specific to meetings. Let's see. And then others are about specific populations. A lot of people like to just sign up for everything so that you can make sure that you're not missing out on anything. If you do that, then you can definitely be sure that you're going to get emails about these CoC trainings. But these are all the different things you can get signed up for. We have these CoC learning hubs, and then we have a bunch of other like committee meetings. We also have our provider call, as you know, every month. So please sign up for these. This would be the one that you want to click on, this one, information CoC provider trainings, to make sure if you are a homeless service provider that you get access to all of the trainings that we offer. And then at the bottom, you would just click, get this, you just click sign up, and then that would sign you up for all those mailing lists. But otherwise, I am going to be either myself or Jamie, depending on when I'm available to get this done. I will make sure to send out the PowerPoint as well as the recording to this meeting for all of you that attended. But thank you everyone so much for joining. I'll stick around for another minute or two in case folks have questions. Otherwise, you all are free to go. Thanks so much, everyone.